Mets pitcher Max Scherzer joins us right now. Max, how you doing? Are you out on the West Coast right now?
Yeah, here in LA. Yeah, we were in San Francisco or Oakland, San Francisco, previous 3 days, and now down here in LA, and then we go right back to San Francisco after this.
How was Oakland? How was it? Was there
The
14 people
A's,
in the stands?
no, the A's fans that show up, man, those are some of the best fans in baseball. I mean, they are nuts from pitch one to the end. Some of my favorite playoff games have been in Oakland. Those are the most rowdy kind of atmospheres that I've ever pitched in. So, it stinks to see them, where they're at because I've always appreciated going there.
Did you see the possum? Have you heard about the possum, and did you see the possum?
No, is there a possum running around there?
So
Yeah.
your announcers couldn't use the visiting booth because they walked in after the A's were on the road, and there's a possum. It's been living in there for over a year, and it was probably Ron, Keith, Gary.
Yes.
They walked in, it smelled so bad they couldn't use the booth, so they had to go to a separate booth to call the games because the possum family. So I mean, New York tough. I don't know, man. I'm questioning it. You can't handle a little possum.
Yeah, they need a new stadium. I think that's safe to say.
Oh, there it is.
There he is,
There
right
it
there.
is.
Yeah.
That's unbelievable. Hey,
Yeah.
hey, Max, how's the back doing, man? How's everything going body wise?
Yeah, that's pretty good. It's kind of, I don't want to say typical, but I ran into this in 2019, where the low scap, where it's completely outside the shoulder. So you're not. If you kind of make an analogy to the car, if your shoulder's the engine, I mean, if you have to check engine light, like that's a bad day at the car shop if you have to fix an engine. But where it's down low by the scap. It's more like the brakes, so it's easy to fix the brakes. In terms of when you have to make a car repair. And so, honestly, I feel like this is going to be, I'm going to get through this kind of little soreness that's kind of leering back there here in a couple days. I dealt with this in 2019. Kind of tried to pitch through it, a couple starts, and then I got actually it developed into a strain. So, I know the dangers of this. If I just all I need is just a little couple extra days here and there. So my start instead of Sunday got pushed back to Wednesday. Hopefully that knocks it out, and that's all I need.
Do you cup? What do you do for it? Do you cup? Like, do you cupping? Do you stretching? Do you do treat? I mean, what's the protocol for that injury besides rest?
Yeah, anti-inflammatories, just some treatments, but really it's just rest. I mean, there's no other really thing that you can, make this go away. It's just a time thing. So it just got overcooked. It's just one thing that's happened. I've dealt with it before, and I won't let it get worse than it is now.
Do you feel like we always talk about on the show, like, okay, if a rookie gets hurt, if a rookie has this lower scap thing, the team controls it. Do you feel like at your point in your career, you're like, look, dog, like, I got this. Like, trust me. And like, how long does that trust take to build up? Because I'm assuming the Mets have good trainers, and so you're trying to work those guys. But how does that process work?
So we'll start on this as that saying like, yeah, I understand this. I've had this before, and that conversation happens where if it's a rookie, yeah, you're much more underneath team control. Whereas I just have experience with this. I know exactly what this is. This isn't serious, but you do have to give it the proper attention. And so especially when you have a history and you're able to communicate that with the trainers, it makes everybody just kind of understand this better. But I feel like the only reason I've ever had a good rapport with the trainers or I get any type of leeway is because I am honest. I'm actually kind of brutally honest with it of how I feel, where I'm at, and I don't lie about it. I never pitch through injuries. I always communicate those of where I'm at, and I'm always trying to come up with the number of pitches I can throw in a day. So was it possible that I could start on Sunday? But I didn't think I had 100 pitches there. I probably would have gotten to 50 pitches and then would have been in trouble. So,
You don't want to pitch in Oakland. You don't want to pitch in Oakland. You want to pitch in L.A. I know.
It's the possum.
See, that's smart. That's a veteran move right there. He's like, I can pitch in front of 3,000 or 53,000. I'll take L.A. That's smart.
Yeah, that didn't hurt either. But this is real though.
Yeah, of course. Hey, on that topic, Max, I want to take us back about a month ago, and we had you on, and it was right around WBC time, and a huge discussion for a while was, how do we get the biggest names in baseball on the mound to pitch in the WBC? Ken Rosenthal on his show Fair Territory on this channel actually addressed it just the other day and said, why don't we just push it back a little bit? That might be a good compromise. Everyone's been trying to figure out a way to kind of maximize this tournament because it was so popular. And I know you have some thoughts on it too, as you've talked to some guys around the league and thought about it yourself. What do you think now that, we have a few years to get ready for this thing again, and we want to make sure that everyone that wants to be involved can be involved?
Yeah, I had conversations with teammates, conversations with guys who participated in it, and even some conversations with some MLB officials about this as well. Saying if the pitchers can get fully ramped up, you let me get those 5-6 starts in, and I fully get going. Start the WBC the last week of spring training. Once we're built up, and then run the thing through the first week of the season. And whatever you need to do with the games, whether you backfill those in with double headers or you move to 154 or whatever it is, whatever the semantics are of solving that, then you would have the ability for pitchers that, all the major league pitchers to participate because you're fully ramped up. That's the number one concern with this, of why guys didn't want to participate is you need spring training. You need to get built up for 100 pitches before you want to step into a game where everything's on the line. So I think if the WBC's format started on that timing and made the calendar work with that, and running into the first week of the season, I think that's how you would get the most amount of participation with it and make the best product for it. I mean, it killed me not being able to participate in it and watching it. But if the fans want this, they want this to be bigger and better, then we got to get everybody involved and we got to do this the right way.
If they do that for next go round, are you going to join in if they kind of comply with what we're talking about?
Well, yeah, I mean, I would, but I just don't know if I'm going to be young enough to be able to do it. I think they're probably going to want to do this. They're probably going to be in line a little bit maybe before I am. But, for me, the way I kind of, talked about this was, look, I've pitched in every All-Star game. If I'm built up, I want to be in there. I want to compete with this. I saw how awesome it was. But also throughout the process, while those games were going on, when I was making my first, 5 innings, 75 pitches, I'm like, I'm just not ready. Like this would, I stand by it. I'd be rolling the dice if I'm not fully built up, trying to step into a playoff game. So I think if we do this right, a lot of pitchers will participate next time.
Have you talked to other guys about this idea? Other pitchers,
Yeah.
Other big league guys?
Yeah, other big guys on the Mets, and it makes sense. The other side of this is when the WBC starts, that you have the rest of the league still in spring training. So yeah, you'd have to extend spring training by a week. But guys are already reported, guys are already there, and you're already having games going on. So it'd be the least disruption to anybody's schedule to start it then. To try to do something actually in the midseason, yeah, that'd be very disruptive. Where if you do it right here at the beginning of the season and eat into the first part of this first weeks of April, that'd be a good timing, I think, for everybody.
So Max and a fan in the conversation right now in the YouTube chat said, play the prelims in spring now, play the brackets during All-Star break. Imagine the anticipation. So you're saying that's not necessarily the way to go, even if we just did the semifinals during that time?
Yeah, I mean that'd be exciting. Don't get me wrong, that could work. But you can do the whole thing here at the end of spring training and during the season. I also know if you start trying to mess with the All-Star break, you're going to have injuries around then. Almost the cleanest time to do this is right at the beginning of the season. So if you actually kind of think about it, the other side of this is that, look, you have the World Series, and we know that's going to be the World Series. But the other side of this is that there's a World Baseball Classic, and that's at the beginning of the season. If you look at the golf, the biggest major of the season is the Masters, and that's right off at the beginning. So when you look at other sports and see how they kind of operate as well, I think that we can make the World Baseball Classic bigger, and it's not going to take away from the World Series.
Max, can you imagine the frustration if you pitched, like the fan just said, in the All-Star break, and you had to miss a start? I'm not even talking about, God forbid, something happened at that game, but you had to miss a start for your team, and then the Mets missed the playoffs by one game that you didn't get to pitch. That's where I think this doesn't work. This plan doesn't work, that the fans said, well, play the games in the middle of the year. Like, it disrupts not only MLB season, but Japan season, Korea season, everyone's season, and you have to fly all these people into a specific location. So I mean, I couldn't even imagine in how you would feel. Man, I'm pitching in the semifinals or the finals for USA. Oh, we missed the playoffs as the Mets by one game because I couldn't pitch a game for the Mets. I would be devastated if that was me.
Yeah, I think that's why, as enticing as it would be to try to do like a finale around the All Star break, and that makes a lot of sense. The logistics to it don't make sense, and so as much as you want that, all right, you got to reinvent the wheel on this. Like, all right, when is the right time to do this? Because at the end of the day, guys are always going to choose their teams to do this. Now, we definitely want to represent our countries. Don't get me wrong, but as long as it doesn't take away from our ability to go out there and represent our teams.
Hey, Max, I got a fan question too on Twitter here from Shea Parking Lot. Where did you get your intensity, and was Mad Max like that in Little League? So did this start at a young age? Like, were you on the mound, like getting intense at like 8, 9, 10, 11 years old? I think that's a cool question to ask. So when did that start to develop? I mean, with all of a sudden you got older, you're like, man, I'm pretty good. Let me put on this mean look, man.
I've always been intense, definitely, but it definitely took a different. I mean, like you play other sports, you learn how to compete and play through different pain and stuff like from that. So I played football 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th grade. Played basketball all the way through high school. I really credit my basketball coach Rick Kirby in high school. He was one of the most competitive coaches I've ever had in my life, and making you work to play defense in basketball. So, the intensity that we play with in basketball, that I felt like just being an athlete growing up and being competitive, that they all kind of fed each other. So being a good football player made you a better basketball player. Being a better basketball player made you a good baseball player. And so when I finally went to college and just settled down on one, like there's no other sports anymore. I'm just a baseball player that is kind of channeling all the competitiveness from the other sports into just baseball. And I feel like having that background, has served me well.
You still throw the same intense bullpens as you used to throw? And kind of explain that, because I don't think people get to see that because the gates ain't open. Like that was a spectacle. You still do that?
No, well, yes and no, but I made an epiphany a while ago that realizing that when another sport is where you practice like you play. I used to throw a bullpen probably as intense as I was in the game, and I realized that just wasn't working. The best way to actually get better in your bullpen is you actually kind of got to be on the opposite side of the coin. You got to be relaxed. Like it's okay to make a mistake in a bullpen, and you're chasing success. You're chasing executing the pitch correctly, not getting mad at the bad ones. And so in my bullpens, my mentality is the complete opposite.
Hey, Max, so I'm going to bring up when we played against you the one year. So me and Adam Eaton were having that feud. So I just remembered this a little while ago. So, hey, listen, and I'm going to tell you exactly. So me and him, we had this feud, whatever it was, blah, blah, blah. AJ, you probably knew him a little bit from Chicago. But I remember I think we were struggling at the time. But you know what? I'm going to take the bull by the horns here and just act up a little bit. So for me, he grounded in double play. I'm talking smack to him. Getting him going a little bit. And then, he fakes bunt. I'm talking at third. And I heard somebody in the dugout chirping back to me. And I didn't look over, but I could have sworn it was you. Was that you that was chirping back to me during that day?
Actually, it probably wasn't. Probably not. Because I love that you guys had a little feud and it was great. And you were trying, like whatever. That's baseball. Sometimes how you get on different teams, different guys. Hey, it's just the way your brothers. Things happen. Things just happen. So I probably wasn't chirping at you because I remember when that game was going on, I kept telling Eaton to get underneath the skin, like, hey, I think I'm on Team Frazier. Like I was like, hey, Team Frazier doesn't like that ground out, and constantly needling Eaton because I love Eaton. He's a great teammate. He's got a personality that like it just works. Like it works from baseball, and I really enjoyed him. And so, but I also knew how to get underneath the skin, and so I knew you were one of them. So anytime if he ground out, if I Frazier likes that, I knew that just
I was laughing because I knew. I said, somebody's chirping over there. I mean, do I want to talk shit to this guy or do I want to talk to them? I'm like, I'm just going to leave the dugout alone. So I just stay on Adam, man. That was funny, man. Good stuff.
Yeah, I might have thrown a comment in there too. That's definitely up my alley, but
Yeah.
I just remember I was more into eating though.
Yeah.
Max, since you're in LA, you're playing the Dodgers. I'm sure you saw the Cody Bellinger stuff this weekend, where he got the standing ovation, and we talked about pitch clock last time you're on. So my question is, when you take the mound, are they going to give you a standing ovation like they did Cody Bellinger, and are you going to take the pitch clock violation to milk it?
Whatever fans do is what the fans do. Yeah, I'm not going to take a violation. Like you just see it, MLB is just like the umpire. I get the umpires. The umpires are in a tough spot. They're absolutely told like there's no wiggle room whatsoever. Like they got to do this. But the game is screaming, "Don't do it!" Like give Cody his moment. So that's just another pet peeve of mine with the clock, of where we're using it in the wrong way. Like we've sped up the game, we've changed behavior. Now we don't need it as much, and this is another case where the clock looks bad. Like just some common sense, some human logic says don't do it, and yet we have to do it, and the umpires are forced to do it. So that's what stinks about it. So if it happens to me, I mean you just got to pitch. I mean that's what stinks.
Hey Max, now that you've pitched during the regular season with the clock a little bit, do you think that there could be any concerns with certain pitchers rushing themselves and it leading to a problem for them, maybe bad mechanics or leading to injuries? I mean, we don't have enough data for anything yet, but you've been around the game for a while. It's different spring training to regular season. What are your thoughts? We spoke now we get to speak that it's implemented in the regular season.
Yeah, I think we're going to see some problems potentially with pitchers is once it gets hot. Once you got to pitch a hot day game somewhere, and you're at this pace, and let's say you're running through some quick innings, like that's gonna be a lot of pitches in a short amount of time and some heat. That's really gonna take a toll on somebody. So for me, not in that scenario, you got to wonder if there's gonna be some pitcher injuries around that, and if there are, then we have to have a conversation about how this needs to move forward.
What's the solution? Well, Jim Wolf was behind the plate for the Bellinger thing. He's a veteran umpire.
Yeah.
He's been around 20 plus years. He couldn't have stepped back and said, hold on, whoa. Like tell the catcher, whoever was catching, Will Smith or Barnes, walk to the mound. Like Max, what's the solution here? They said they're going to give him wiggle room, but then we hear that the Cubs had to call MLB and say, hey, they might give a standing ovation. They might not. Like what happens if they make that call and they don't?
I know. That's when we're breaking down common sense. Like, look, I get that we need to change the pace. I'm with it, and we had to do something to do it, and I get it. And so having a clock is better than having no clock. I'll say that. But how we're using the rules of the clock, how we're punishing players with it is what I have a problem with, especially when we're playing at pace. Like the 245 pace, that's a good ball game. I think everybody's entertained by that. That the fans like it, players like it, and I think that's a good thing for the game. But because of the clock, like there's a lot of games where you're playing at like 220 pace or 230 pace, and that's just too much. We've accomplished already so much. Why do we need to punish somebody with a ball strike when we're playing that fast? And so that's where the umpire discretion comes in. And let the umpires make the decision when we want the clock and when we don't.
What would you change? Not just with this specifically, but like
sure.
What would you change?
So like it'd be like, for instance, like if you went 245 pace, that means after the third inning you should have played the game in 55 minutes. Like that would be pace. So if we play the first 3 innings at 50 minutes, turn the clock off. We're playing at pace. We don't need it. You most likely haven't had a violation. We're not having a lot of violations. Like you have over 99% compliance. The behavior's changed. Like just let us play. And if we continue to play at a quick pace, like you don't need it. If a game is running slow, then let the umpire turn the clock on. I guess the way I'm articulating this and the concept that I'm using is actually like golf. Golf has the same type of idea. They have pace of play measures, and that if you start playing too slow, then the clock comes on. And so, for me, that's how baseball should be. Our sport resembles golf more because there's not a game clock. It's tough to say we're NBA or we're football, but they have a game clock, whereas we don't. And so if you look at how the PGA does it, I think that's the best. That's probably the best way for us to do it as well, is to try to bring at the bottom, not constantly punish anybody for any one minor infraction.
Is there too quick of a game?
Kind of, yeah. I mean, I guess when we all sit there and say, like, when you're playing a 245 game, like, that's entertaining. Like, do you really need to step through everybody and start punishing players to get it down to 220? Like, is that really good? Like, is that really what the fans want? I would sit there and say no. I get we need to change. The hitter stepping out of the box, adjusting his gloves, and the pitcher, taking his time. But we've done that. Mission accomplished. Like, now we need to start thinking about how we want to actually make these rules so that you're not impacting the game. You're not changing the game. And to me, we've changed the game.
Max, you're changing beer sales, though. Don't you get it? You're changing beer sales, okay? You can't have them. You can't sell as much beer now.
You get a few more beer sales.
I mean, you got to get. That's why all these teams are now extending their beer sales an extra inning, because they can't make all their money. So listen, I get it. I agree with you. I think the PGA. I don't know if the PGA system will work, but yeah, put a reliever, a slow reliever, because relievers are usually slower than starters most of the time, right? So put a clock and say, hey, you're too slow. Now you're on the clock. I agree, because now games are, man, they're over.
Yeah, actually, one of my cousins made an interesting comment. They thought they really liked the clock on TV. When you watch it on TV, like, it's entertaining, but when you actually go see the game in person, like, oh, I didn't realize everybody's just running across the diamond. Like, everybody's frantically trying to get in the box. Like, when you actually see in person how frantic everybody's behavior is now, like, okay, that's where it's too far in my book.
One more on this. So relievers are slower than starters. So if the game goes quick, then generally, yes, we've had some, in the past, defenders that make the game go really long. Just, I know from calling a game, like, sometimes it's got great pace, and then we get to the 6th or 7th, and I'm like, what happened? And a guy comes in and he takes a while. So the thing is, on the clock going on and off idea, like, what do you do then if the game is still at a pretty good pace for time, but it feels like the game is slowing down because the reliever comes in and he's taking like 40 seconds?
So that's where we do have data on, like, individuals, like who takes time and who doesn't. So if there's a bad individual, let's say there's a reliever that he just works slow. Well, then the clock, you can always turn the clock back on. That would be using, the human, being judged by the human eye would make sense. But I also would almost disagree with that, because behavior has changed. That you can't sit here and work slow anymore in 2023. Like, you have to work fast. So everybody has changed their behavior. So I don't know if that slow reliever exists in the same way anymore, because you've changed your behavior, but two, also, is that reliever going to work slow if the hitter's working fast? I mean, that's the other component to the pace problem, was that so much of this was the hitter's ability to be able to step out of the box, adjust his batting gloves, take his time. That when the hitter's in the box, typically pitchers pitch. So I know it's easy to pick on the slow reliever, but I don't know if that slow reliever is as slow as he was in the past.
Hey, Max, we were talking earlier about Domingo Germán and the whole rosin thing. My first question, do you use rosin? And then my next question do you think the umpires handle it well? We had a really good dialogue going with the group here. Some agreements, some not agreements. How do you think about that whole situation that transpired?
Yeah, briefly. So I don't know all the details to it. I don't know what, I don't know any of the comments. I don't know what was, completely there. But I mean, at the end of the day, if he got checked, he had rosin. Like, okay, we need to clean it up. I guess he told him to go clean it up. He washed his hand, redid it, reapplied, used the rosin, and everything's good. I think that's the umpires are handling it right. So. Like I said, it's tough to really comment any more on that without knowing more of the situation.
My only thing to you, Max, is when an umpire comes to check you, does he just go like this? It's like, hey, look, I'm going to give you a little. I mean, I know they kind of.
They definitely come through and they press and they check. I mean, they feel your fingers. You know,
So
and they're feeling.
but you can
they're
make
feeling the
rosin
fat.
pretty. You can make rosin pretty sticky, right? If you're sweating enough and it's a hot day, you
Oh
can
yeah.
make it. So how do they know
Oh
the
yeah.
difference between sticky rosin or sticky stuff?
I mean, that's just their judgment. I mean, I don't have an answer for that, but I mean, you can make rosin very sticky. So, but the umpires, I think, as a whole, have made, made the correct judgment in that, they're not looking for any little thing. They're not going to try to make a scene every single time, and they really only try to go up against egregious cases. But I think actually, I mean, here we can actually talk about this. I actually think we got to get the checks off the field. If you have I'm just going with, I'm just using Jermon as an example of saying, hey, he's completely using rosin, he's completely free. There's no funny business going on. That check should have happened in between innings, with an MLB official and underneath, out of the camera sight. Let him get checked, wash his hands and reapply the rosin right then and there. If you get this off the field, this would be so much cleaner, so much better, and you wouldn't have so much of these semantics. And you can educate an MLB official of like what you're looking for. You would actually have time to actually be able to check and actually be able to address this issue in a way instead of putting this on the umpires in front of the cameras, in front of everybody, and making a spectacle out of it.
I agree. We have an official for every other thing, right? We got a guy down there watching the video room. We got a guy checking bats. We got a guy checking uniforms. We got people checking everything.
Security.
Why can't we have a guy sit down there and watch the pitcher? He comes in, or a guy in the bullpen says, "Hey, before you go in, let me see your hands in the tunnel or whatever." Comes running out, and then before the inning, have a guy in the dugout just say, "Okay, you're good. Go pitch."
The umps seem embarrassed. It's like weird when they're checking you on TV in front of 50,000 people sometimes.
Right. I mean, then the other way that you redefine this issue is it's not really substance; it's a spin rate. Like everybody has a spin rate, so as long as you're within the spin rate, like play on.
Okay.
Like a spin rate baseline, basically.
Yeah, because there's data. I mean, unless there's a new guy that gets, but even in AAA and AA, they have spin rates on everything now.
Yeah,
So,
but your spin rate could change.
I mean,
No?
All right. I mean,
On a
yeah.
great-
Then prove it. Go use rosin, prove that you got it. Like, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yep. No, that's fair.
I agree.
I like it.
I agree.
Hey, Max, awesome to have you on, as always, anytime. We appreciate it. And good luck out there. We'll see you on Wednesday on the mound.
All right. Appreciate it. Thanks, guys.